Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, welcome. How are you? We are just heading into summer now, so how's your summer going? Are you off? Are you taking any vacation? How's the weather? I love this episode with Jen. We start out by talking about some of the gremlins that we're personally having in our relationship. And Jen and I were chatting before we started to record. And I'm like, wait, let's record and talk about this for you, the listener, so you can hear. We end up talking about how do you start seeing what the capacity of relationships are. And I feel bad that I can't remember the words that Jen uses because I talk about it in terms of testing a relationship and she talks about it in terms of seeing what's possible. And I can't grasp the language, but we talk about our attachment wounds, creating safety in the relationship, how you can rest in the attachment, how sometimes we overperform, and how is that security achieved, and that we need to have vulnerability and risking loss of the relationship. But if you don't know that that's possible in a relationship or you don't know how to do it, we talk about some of these things because the clients that I work with, some of you are wanting to have more depth in your relationships, but don't know how. And if you've never had it modeled, how can you even know that that can exist? And so now on to the show. Happy birthday, Jen Perry.
Thank you.
It is your birthday today. So how are you feeling?
It was funny. I have my little notebook up and I was jotting down the date and I was 4/28 and I almost put my birth year for today. It's funny. I have mixed feelings about my birthday, I guess. It's lovely out. It seldom rains on my birthday. I love this end of April time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think maybe I remember it raining once. And so I enjoy that. I do enjoy the day. I kind of treat it like my own personal, little New Year. And maybe that's part of the problem, right? Because what comes with New Year, it's some intentions, all that kind of stuff like that. I think I have to carry those things gently, that dialectic of loving and accepting myself exactly where I am right now and still wanting to strive and have intentions and things that I want to hopefully bring to fruition that I'm nowadays acutely aware that I'm not all that in control. Yeah. And then just the balance between not liking being the center of attention and then it also wanting to be acknowledged. Mm-hmm. And I find that that's a difficult balance in my system to strike. That's a hard balance. So it's a little rocky. I think about you and your kayak and I'm like, woohoo, today's one of those rolly wavy days.
Yeah. I think a number of HSPs don't like being the center of attention, but want the acknowledgement. So finding that balance of what does that look like without dishonoring, because we don't want that overstimulation, but we don't want to be ignored.
Exactly. It's like my whole life. Yeah. It's such a hard balance to strike. Yeah. So creating a lot of space for myself.
Yeah.
For me, the big lesson in receiving, relaxing, resting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
before we hit record, I think I said, what do you want to talk about today? And then you're like, we can do whatever. And I said, you're so good about going with the flow. And do you remember what you said?
Yes. I was like, that's not annoying though, right?
And my thought is no, absolutely not. And then I was thinking about some gremlins that I have and I was going to tell you. And I'm like, well, let's hit record before I tell you so that we can just have this authentic conversation. I always have gremlins. It's your birthday. And so last night, because you're 3 hours ahead of me, I wanted to make sure I texted you so that you woke up to a happy birthday message. And then I had to get up at 3:30 to take the dog out. And I thought, oh, I forgot to do the birthday slam. If you have an iPhone, you can do the birthday slam on that phone. And so it's already 6:30 your time. And so I did that. And then you responded, thank you. And my gremlin was, you're going to think I'm trying too hard and that I'm going to keep sending you stuff until you acknowledge me. And so I had this thought of oh, am I trying too hard and am I annoying you?
Oh my gosh. I feel that not at all because you annoyed me. That's not it at all. But yes, I get that moment. I have that gremlin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. Like it's funny in teaching self-compassion. It's always like, how can we approach those gremlins with some compassion? But yeah, that's the one that I want to kick to the curb too. I was delighted. God, this middle adulthood is such an SHIT show, right? That was not on my radar at all. It was just pure delight to receive. It's funny, right? Because it's your gremlin.
Yeah.
But the beauty of being in a relationship that's authentic, where we can openly discuss our gremlins, is the testing them out. Well, I guess I just reflect back to you with those moments where, like, for me, but knowing that I don't have to take care of your gremlin, right? That's your gremlin to chaperone.
Right. Having it be so that it's just like I have an itch or a scratch or a cough or a sneeze. The same thing with gremlins of going like, ugh, I'm having this gremlin. I still have this gremlin when I can't sleep at night. I often listen back to the solo episodes. Sometimes I'll listen to our interviews, but they tend to stimulate me and wake me up. But I was listening to one of our episodes. I still have this gremlin that you share. You do such a beautiful job of reflecting or acknowledging what I say, and you share, and I'm like, okay, and now now here's where I want to take it. And I have this gremlin that not only does it aggravate you, but the listeners going, Patricia, you're not a very good listener. Like you don't reflect, Jen, like you just talk about whatever you want. Isn't that interesting?
It is.
I don't need for you to do anything around that. I'm just sharing it. And this is also part of the process of when we share our gremlins. Sometimes we need a reality check, and sometimes like I just need to go like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. I love this idea of like, can it be like a sneeze, or can it be like just, it's something that arises out of our consciousness, and can it be as like a fart, quite honestly? Right? Can it just be that this is something that a human brain does? It sort of spews out these gremlins from time to time. And certainly it's intellectually satisfying to trace origins back to childhood and all that stuff. But it could also just be, oh, there it goes. The one thing I was going to say about you and that gremlin having to do with the podcast is why I feel it's so important to contextualize ourselves, right? Because, of course, if you and I were on a telephone call, you would reflect and it would be just you and me. But in this moment, your context is you're looking at the time, you're recording a podcast, like there's so much other stuff going on. And I just think context is so important. And our gremlins often isolate themselves away from the context.
Yeah. Well, even this morning when we logged on, thank you for sharing that, Jen. I really appreciate that. I just feel like I did it again.
Oh my God. And I'm sitting here with a puzzled look on my face like, what? Like, because I know your context. It's okay.
Well, and even this morning when we logged in, for some reason, my recording mic dropped off of my computer. And if I don't have it set, then the quality of our audio is going to be terrible. So you logged in. I wanted to wish you happy birthday, but I was so preoccupied about where did my mic go? How do I get the driver? What I love is, that I've got this Tasky brain. And when my Tasky brain is on, there's no empathy. There's no,
Yes.
So once I got it together, I'm like, happy birthday. How are you? You know that about me, but I have this concern because I am good at getting stuff done, but I also sometimes miss the social niceties that are kind of nice to do with people that you care about. But it feels like it's one or the other for me sometimes.
I just want to take a minute to really appreciate, though, that taskiness about you. I mean, I'm always in awe of your ability to get stuff done. I feel like I fly by the seat of my pants over here, and I can't right now do the things that you do. So I have a lot of respect for, again, it's like your context, all of the pieces of your constellation right now.
What I love and appreciate about you is you're fun, you're light, you're spontaneous, you're in the moment. You have that ability to be, I think, in some ways, much more present because you're just enjoying life in the moment. And the part of me that needs to get stuff done pulls back kind of that adult. Clean up your room. Are your shoes tied? Are you smiling? Are you making eye contact? Are you? And so I feel like you have this ease and feels like authenticity. I mean, I have it too, but I always feel like I have that adult constraint that's trying to make sure everything's managed. Not all the time, but.
Yeah. It's a balance, right? Because I need more of that.
I need more of what you have.
Yeah. I don't want to, I'll keep beating this drum today. Apparently, this is my theme today, Patricia. We could not have thought of this 15 minutes ago, but right now, again, just context, right? Where I am in my life right now and where you are in your life right now and the different spaces that we can inhabit. I am, and I'm relatively at peace with that right now. Between, I know you know about my life, but between just the move and the 2 kids and all the things going on with them and figuring out being a single mom and like doing all of these different things. So it really is okay. I am flying by the seat of my pants a lot of the time right now.
Well, you have so much going on and so many more moving pieces, and we're at different stages in our lives, different stages with our kids. You are raising young kids, and I've launched my kids. My husband just retired. We're in very different places in our life right now. And I think it's beautiful how we can hold space for each other and where we're at. And you just have a lot more going on in different areas than I do.
Yeah. I do want to be you when I grow up, though.
I don't know about that.
Like, whatever that next little stage is, it's cool having that, looking at you, pulling it off, and how you do it.
Thanks. Don't lose your playfulness and your spontaneity, though, because that's what I'd like more of. More ease.
Yeah.
Maybe part of what we can talk about today is how do we bring that authenticity to relationships, and how do you create that safety? I mean, I think we practice in little bits and see if somebody's responsive to it or not. And if they're not, then you go like, oh, this isn't my person to talk about this kind of stuff. But I think that there's such a gift, and I don't know that people know that we can talk about our gremlins or the things that we're concerned about, and it cannot have to be a big deal. And I have this theme of feeling like I'm too much a lot. And when it's coming up, I just bring it to the relationship just to kind of air it out so that it doesn't create a big story in my head that keeps me separate from you. And you have some of your own fears of disappointing me. And so when that comes up, you talk about it. And it's not that our wounding ever goes away. The volume gets lower and we know how to manage it, but it doesn't prevent us from having intimacy and closeness in our relationship. So I'd like to let you talk for a little bit, and then I'm going to attempt to reflect what you said before I talk about my own stuff.
It's so funny, like what you just put out there. I've been really struggling to articulate this stuff, right? So we've got, through an attachment lens, right? We've got some attachment wounds. Because I was thinking about what you were talking about earlier. When you have a lot of safety in a relationship, you can kind of rest in that attachment, even if it's not my natural inclination, right? My natural inclination is to overperform and to hustle for the attachment. So when you're resting in it, I can take for granted, it doesn't bother me that I didn't say happy birthday right away or something like that because I don't feel insecure. Well, how is that security achieved, right? It's by being authentic, which is a scary, vulnerable moment because you're risking rejection, right? You're risking the loss of the relationship. But if you're unwilling to do that, in some ways you've already lost not the relationship, but the authenticity and the safety in the relationship because you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable, right? And you're too scared. And then what do you have is you have a relationship, but it's not as intimate or as close or as safe as if you were to take that risk. So I almost like frame it like, is it really a risk? Because what you're getting is you're getting information that this person maybe can't go there with you. And that's okay. You can still have a friendship, but it's not necessarily going to be like you were saying, like that person. And there's a lot to set that up, right? This is why I love being a counselor, because you're holding this space from a wide open perspective for other people. And then I can't do it to myself. So I go to my own counselor or I have you often to reflect things back to me, right? Because I can't see it for my own self. But knowing that that's there and then not taking things personally is like so key to really being able to do this. Being like, okay, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
If I did get all bent out of shape because you were Tasky and didn't say happy birthday to me right away, like that's my stuff. I just wish we could reframe these things that instead of being failures, again, it's context, it's interaction. We're not in control. It's information, it's data.
Yeah. Well, and I think that some people don't know that this is possible and they haven't had it modeled before. I don't know if this happens with you, but oftentimes my clients will be talking about things. I'm like, have you talked to your friend about it? Have you talked to your partner? Like, oh, I can't. You're like, they don't know that it's possible to have this kind of intimacy or vulnerability or authentic communication. And because they haven't had positive experiences with that outside of the therapeutic relationship, like, they don't want to go there. Or the other thing is that, maybe you and I are in a relationship, not our current relationship, if we were different people, and maybe I want to take that risk and maybe you want to take the risk, but like, I'm afraid and you're afraid. And so we never go there. And so we kind of tap dance around surfacey things when we both have this desire for more meaning and depth. But neither one of us knows how. And that can make it really hard. I hear people talk about wanting to have these meaningful, deep connections with people, and it can be hard. You and I have done a lot of testing the waters and kind of seeing how things go. And we've been friends for a couple of years now. It's not like it happened overnight, but you start with little tests, and that creates that sense of safety. Like you said, you can rest in the attachment. Look, I reflected something you said. Yay, me.
Yeah. Again, just putting it out there that like, I wish we could reframe that risk. What have you really lost?
Yeah.
Like nothing really, because without doing it, you can't have what it is you want.
Yeah.
It's funny. I know you know that one of my tropes is I have a hard time asking for what I need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or asking for what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason why we need each other to do this type of reflecting is I'll confound things. One of my most cherished values is freedom. Right. And remember this when I had this thing, like if I ask, I'm somehow taking away a person's freedom to say no. That's all my stuff. That's because I don't feel that I can say no because I can't rest. So breaking that apart, it's funny. I had a client, it was such a sweet compliment, say that it felt like, in our session that she had been like to the chiropractor, but like for her heart and mind. And it is that sensation when you like break that apart. It's like, oh, wait a minute. If I asked her what I need, then I'm taking away someone's freedom. I think, and it was you who was like, whoa, Jen, back up, take that higher perspective and look at this. So I've been learning to ask for what I need and what I want, and still having the spaciousness that the person that I'm asking has the freedom to say no. Mm-hmm. That in turn, there's the mirror image there that I'm learning that I can say no to.
Right.
Right. And of course, this is hilarious because I do boundaries all the time with clients, but it's an entirely different story doing it for myself. Mm-hmm. So working through the different, in my case, it was a lot of almost like pre-verbal physical sensations of extreme discomfort to take that risk. Mm-hmm. So we have to know not to take things personally. We have to be able to see our stuff. We have to be able to tolerate really uncomfortable emotions and know that they're not dangerous. Discomfort isn't dangerous. But the risk is like so cool. So I had a situation come up and I asked Christine for something and I knew it was a big ask. I asked her to take care of my dog.
Yeah, but who is Christine if people don't know?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Christine is my partner. Mm-hmm. And I was planning this vacation with my kids and I shouldn't do anything after 10 p.m., but I did. It was 11:30 and I made a reservation that didn't allow dogs. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, I was able to get out of the reservation and I have an Airbnb that has a dog that I can take the dog to now. But it was neat because when I asked, and I knew it was a big ask, and I did do my usual thing, which is like, it's okay to say no. And I'm questioning whether I even need to do any of that stuff. But she was so clear in her no. And it was so beautiful because suddenly it lit up every single yes that she's ever given me and made it feel so real and strong because I know that this person can say no to me and that their yeses mean more than.
Yes.
Oh, God, it was a beautiful moment. I can't even tell you. It was a visceral thing for me. I was sitting in my car. We were on the phone together. And it's working through all of this. And then once you learn it, like it feels so good.
Right. Is it okay to share the follow-up part of the conversation that I had with you around this?
Yeah, please. Because I did take you up on, and I took you up on it too. And it was beautiful. Yeah, go right ahead.
What you had said is like, well, if the next time I see Christine, if she's talking about having regrets about saying no, then maybe I'll tell her how much I appreciate it. My feedback was, it's really important to let the people that we are close to know how much we appreciate the things about them and how much her no meant to you. And you want to reinforce that she continues to feel safe in the no and how much that helps you feel connected to her. So my feedback was, don't wait until she brings it up. Let her know how much that meant to you. So I'd love to hear what happened when you talked to her about it.
Yeah. So again, her no is so, oh God, I so appreciate her. She's such a good model for me. And that opportunity did not arise where she brought it up first. And then I was going to say my thing. And so I remember what you said. And I'm like, yeah, so I did. I said, I forget how I brought it up. We were sitting on the couch together and I was just telling her how much I appreciated that. She said no. And she had a really beautiful and just wise response because, and this is where it's, for me anyway, it's important to have a partner who's also doing their work, right? Because she was able to sit with that, have some feelings, was also taking a risk, but had the wisdom to know that had she said yes without really being clear about it, the potential for, resentment and stuff was there. And that to keep our relationship really as clean and as clear as it can be. And look, humans are messy. Like it's not all that, but where you do have consciousness, like you got to take it. And so she was able to articulate that on her end. And I was like, yes, exactly. And what it felt like for her to have, again, safety to say no. She doesn't have a dog. My dog's a handful. It's a crazy pandemic puppy. So it was a really great connecting moment. And that's the other thing. Like if we can see I wouldn't even call this a conflict, but any sort of opportunity for this type of maybe potential for conflict as an invitation for intimacy, right? Into me, you see. We get out of this how things should be and in our heads in the echo chamber of what we want, and we get just down in the dirt in the this is what's real. And that's what we're all really craving, but we're too scared to go there a lot of the time.
I was trying to think of an analogy, and it's a very poor analogy, so I really can't come up with a better one. But I'm thinking, like, if you don't know about cars and you have a car and it's a manual transmission and you drive in first gear because you don't know if the car can do anything, you're going to always be putzing at 10 miles an hour going down city streets. And it's like relationships. I meet you, we're friends, and we've done the niceties, but I kind of want to share more with you, but I'm not sure if I can. So I kind of open up a little bit and see if you receive it. Then you take the car into second gear. And now you've got first and second gear. And then maybe you feel safe. And so you share a little bit more. Now we're in third gear, and you keep doing this testing. And if the relationship can tolerate it, it's a test. If I share something with you, how are you going to receive me? Or am I going to feel received and loved and safe? Or am I going to go like, oop, not going to go there again? And then the next thing you know, you've got 5 gears and you're driving on the highway. And then you figure out, can you take tight turns, and can it go in the snow, and can it go in the rain? And all of a sudden you've got all this freedom with this vehicle that you can do so much more than just staying in first gear, driving up and down side streets. And it's the same thing with relationships. If you try it out and it doesn't work, then you go like, oh, that didn't work. And you go back and you figure out, was it something I said? Is it the other person? Is it just this topic? That's how we start testing. But having that idea of, I want to see how much I can have in this relationship. But if I only stay in first gear, that's going up and down side streets for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I love that. I do love that metaphor. One little thing to add to it, I guess, is maybe instead of framing it so much as a test, which to me evokes like kind of like a pass-failed sort of a thing,
Mhm.
it's like it's data points,
Yeah.
right? I guess what I'm trying to get at is like not any one interaction or one conversation has to
Yeah.
be so rarefied as like the thing, where that it's one in a series. If we can stretch some of these conversations, because we need time, right? We need time to digest them. We need time to reflect
Sure.
and slowing things down.
Yeah.
I love that the car, test is very apt. You have to test the waters. You have to test the, how tight is your turning radius,
Right.
So yeah, I understand. I think that's a really great metaphor.
Thanks. I think it also depends on if I'm practicing relationships and you're the only relationship that I have in my life, that's going to take on so much more of a charge, and it's going to be so much more present and important in a way that's, I think, not helpful, as opposed to if my life is fuller and I'm practicing starting having deeper relationships with a number of people, then this one's a little bit bumpy right now. Then I have other things that are creating balance. But if you're the only person or the only relationship where I'm getting my needs met, then I'm probably going to be far more reactive and hurt and disappointed and expect you to meet more needs than you really can. So it means that I've got to be solid in who I am, not 100% solid, but have a pretty good foundation so that I'm not having these high expectations on you to meet my needs in this relationship.
That's such a good point. I mean, I think in our culture, we don't appreciate all of the different relationships, right? So much pressure is usually put on that one primary intimate
Yeah.
relationship,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's, oof.
Well, happy birthday, dear friend.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here with me today. Hey again. I'm curious to know, did that resonate for you? Do you want more intimacy in your relationships? Are you satisfied in your relationships? Are these things hard and scary? If you have questions, if you don't know how to do this, if you're struggling in your relationships, Jen and I are good at this stuff. You can reach Jen if you want to work with her at jen@heartfulnessconsulting.com. You can reach out to me at unapologeticallysensitive.com. One of the things that I didn't talk about is Jen and I have been friends for a few years. We've never met in person, and we have not always been this close. And there were times when I wouldn't hear from Jen for a week or so. So I want to be clear that relationships do not always have the same level of closeness. We float in, we float out, we have things that go on in our lives, and having room for relationships to breathe, grow, expand, contract. Relationships have seasons, and it's okay that they have seasons. And our job is to make sure that we're solid or we're working on ourselves and we have enough support so that if the person we're in relationship with needs more space, that we can allow for that. I hope that's helpful. I think that's all I have to say. I hope everything's going well for you. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.